Hello, Hearts. Welcome to the Hearths Unleashed Podcast, where we are turning dreamers into doers. And I am so honored to introduce to you guys Simona Spark. When I say dreamer into doer, you guys, I'm going to give you the informal, the messy introduction first because I am just too excited about Simona. Read her book, Raising My Voice, the memoir of an immigrant. And when we talk about dreaming to doing, like, we think we got it tough. We think we're trying hard. We think we have barriers and obstacles. This woman has overcome so much. And Simona, I'm so excited to have you here to share some of your story. But just to kick this off the right way, Simona is the CEO and founder of Spark Transformation Academy. She's also the host of Redefined Family in the Modern Age of LGBTQ podcast. You guys, she has a TED Talk. We're going to talk about that, but she's also the author of No More Messy Kids from 2018 and now Raising My Voice, the memoir of an immigrant here in 2021. So she is up to so much. She advocates, she is out there, she's doing the things. She's an immigrant. So you're going to hear her story. And Simona, without me telling too much about it because of my excitement and love of you, will you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you, Abigail. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Abigail, for having me. And please do tell, my story.
Mhm. I know,
um,
but sometimes I can like tell the whole thing and then like forget I have a guest. So, but
no,
yes,
get it.
tell us like, I do know your story and it's brilliant. And I almost like don't even know where to ask you to start. So start wherever you feel inspired.
Well, thank you for this beautiful introduction, which I thank you for it. I feel inspired to start from, just making the decision of moving to United States in my early 30s. Because we talk about, the memoir of an immigrant. Is when my immigrant journey started. Because from there, 6 or 7 years later, I moved to New Zealand, and that was another layer of being an immigrant into a new culture, into a different part of the world. And then now moving back to United States. And what's interesting about it is we go through all these layers of culture shock, right? And then when we went through it, at least my experience, it was that, oh, okay, now I have it figured it out, like, 4 or 5 years in. And then when I moved to a new country, I thought, like, I already know how to do this. I played this game before, right? It was not.
Yes.
It was totally different. And even so, was really surprising to me now moving back to United States, like, wait a minute, I'm a US citizen. I know how things are working here. And it's another layer of adjusting and calibrating to this culture now. Because 2020,
Mhm.
when I moved back, it looks totally different than it was in 2009 when I first moved. So
Yeah.
I don't know if this answers your question, but
Yeah, well, you said to something really important about culture shock, right? Here as an American, as a born American, moving from like the Midwest to California, I would call a culture shock. But
mm,
it's like it's not. It is and it isn't. And like you are moving across whole countries, across whole oceans, experiencing culture shock. And so I wonder what the difference because you've lived in a few different states in the United States, and then you've also lived in different countries. So share your experience about like moving from different, because you talk about how what it was like to move to New Zealand, and then, but you also talk about what it was like to live in Romania, and I think I would love to ask you to start there, like give us the world that you came from because I don't think any of us have really had that kind of experience. And you know what? I can't say that because we definitely have international listeners who probably come from all sorts of backgrounds, but you come from a communist country until the age of 13. So what was that like and how does that influence who you are today?
yes. Thank you for asking that. I think it's important, and not necessarily from the perspective. Let's remember where we are coming from,
Mm,
as much as like really understanding the root of a person that we are engaging in a conversation with.
Mm-hmm.
And while I'm here on a mission to break all the labels, this is very important to me, of not putting that person, like even the immigrant, it
Yeah.
feels like a label. And we hear a little bit of stories about that immigrant, and now we meet another immigrant and we already box them into
Mm.
whatever we learned so far. And it's not. Everybody's story is so unique, and it's so private and personal.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, growing up in Romania, and not a lot of people know what Romania is, but I like to say, I'm from Transylvania, because then a lot of people would know that is. And
Mm.
if I say that I was born 2 hours away from Dracula Castle, now I got everybody's attention. So back then, was the communism regime. And I also, most of my childhood, I live in a country. So it was kind of primitive, like no hot water, a schedule electricity, a schedule TV time, like pretty much a couple hours in the evening, just propaganda of our president. And then uh, my happy moment as a child was a Saturday, 1 p.m., Tom and Jerry. So that was the only entertainment that I have, right? And poorly translated, by the way. But what that ended up, really contributing to who I used to be as an adult, like how that show up in my adult life, was this really messed up belief system.
Mm.
When you The main one that I identified just through my healing work was the fear of speaking up,
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
and has so many layers to it. Not only that, I was not growing up into a family when I was encouraged to have a voice, like quite the opposite.
Yeah.
But also, as the youngest of three, the little one
Mm.
doesn't have to have an opinion. She's too little to know anything.
Yeah.
And then you in this regime where people were literally afraid to challenge any rules or to speak up for themselves, because they'll be locked up or even killed.
Yeah.
So spoken or unspoken, I grow up with this just knowing in my bones that if I say what I think or feel, I'm taking a very big risk.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so profound to me because here you are with a book called Raising My Voice, like is speaking up and shouting out. And so like how did you go from that upbringing to a TED Talk to two books to an academy? You're a $10,000 winner of a speech. Like there's all these different speaking accolades that you have. What shifted? How did that happen?
I'll be saying something that I recognized to one of my master group the other day. I think on some subconscious level, I got to this collecting those evidences of what's possible.
Mm.
And I'm saying that like in a very humble way. It was not even like most of the things that I accomplished up until not too long ago I was not even driven from a very healthy space. I
Mhm.
was driven by this messed up force of I'm just going to prove people that I could do it, and then I'm capable, and I'm going to prove myself that I'm able. And motivation, it's coming, it's hidden under so many different type of masks, and that was mine. And it took it still is, a lot of healing and a lot of introspecting and
Mhm.
all of it to shift that to having my driven force being more or my action more mission driven, which I'm at
Mm.
now, and I'm very
Yeah.
grateful for it. So what changed, I think it was going through whatever challenges that I created in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and just learning from it,
Mm-hmm.
to the point that, as I share in my book, I don't see any challenge anymore today. It's,
Yeah.
it's just an event.
Yeah.
And I trust myself that whatever life threw at me, and we label as challenge or hard time because that's what we learn. I'm just looking at it like, okay, this is uncomfortable. I could feel it in my body. I'm totally calibrating to this new messed up that's in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And what I know and what really excites me in the midst of all is that there's where I'm going to find some new skills that I have that I didn't access, where I'm going to find a new level of, my personal potential, where I'm going to find new ways of doing life. And sometimes I feel at that extreme of like, I'm looking for troubles, or they were saying, because that's where I'm growing, right?
Yes. Yes. Well, and I hear you saying like the shift from thinking of a challenge as a challenge to a challenge as an opportunity. And so, in your life you've faced many challenges. And so what would you say, what sort of opportunities have been born out of all these challenges you've overcome?
Hmm. What I believe is that what we see that the challenge is, the opportunity is the opposite of what we experience.
Mm,
So ending up into abusive relationship, the opportunity was for me to stand up in my power and speak up for myself.
yes.
Apologizing and being living in this belief that I cannot be successful because English is my second language. The
Mm,
opportunity was giving my first public talk on a TEDx stage.
yeah.
So, and the list could go on and on and on. But I'm sharing that just with the intention, for your audience is really the deepest challenge, or whatever we fear the most. It's actually exactly the gift that
Hmm.
is hidden into that challenge.
Hmm.
And yeah, if I look at any challenge in my life, this is exactly what I'm extracting from every challenge. What I was afraid of, that was the thing that was the magic in it.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned English as a second language. You mentioned being in an abusive relationship, and it's like, do you have any, I want to ask for like a tip. Like, do you have a tip for someone who might be in the storm of a challenge right now, and how they could really grab onto like the finding the opportunity, or like what worked for you to really start to shift that? Because I heard you say like I often was trying to prove myself, but now I'm so much more mission driven, guiding people through that. What would be a suggestion or a tip you might have for someone in the middle of their challenge?
Yes. Look, I try many things, and I mainly hide, right? And most of us know that, especially emotional abuse is very hard to fight back, because it's happening behind the closed doors.
Hmm.
Uh, but what I learned, what really helped me, was when I decided to ask for support.
Hmm.
It's simple as that. Not
Yeah.
easy though.
Yeah.
Not easy, because when if anyone is in a situation, and especially now that we are talking about abuse and emotional abuse, is the last thing you want to do. And I just, I can't stand the people, they are, easy judge of like, why did you stay with him so long? There is no time frame. Some people get to leave at the first fight. Some people get to leave a year or 10 years later. Some people never get to leave.
Yeah.
But it's coming down to the only way to leave is when you ask for support.
Hmm.
Now, support looks different for every person. It could be, for me, was making that, 1-800 phone call,
Hmm. Hmm.
to a emergency woman shelter. For other people, it could be telling a friend.
Hmm.
From other people, could be just reading a book,
Hmm.
and end up of being a cumul of all. But where it started and which one is for you, you know. best.
Mhm.
So it's nobody to tell anyone like this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Mhm.
Generally speaking, yes, ask for support, but support could be in so many different ways.
Yeah. I love that answer because if we could do it on our own, we'd have done it by now. You know, like
Yes.
we try, we try, and it doesn't work. And so I'm a huge advocate for professional support. I know you are too in many, many ways. And I know you are that professional support for many people. So I'd love to shift the conversation because you have a chapter in your book called Raising Your Voice. You help others raise their voice, and you also, in the name of your podcast, and you explain in the and share in the book, is that you really support like eliminating labels and judgment and discrimination, and in many different ways, not just like immigrant but also LGBTQ. And so share a little bit about how you help others raise their voice.
Thank you for asking that. Look, when I start this journey of tapping into what coaching is and mentorship is, and like everybody else, I put myself to school and I get the first certificate and the second and the third and the seventh, and I'm gonna be in school for the rest of my life. That's something that I accept.
Yes.
Um, so from doing all the work and supporting, I proudly could say that I coach over 400 people so far and just in 3 years.
Yeah.
And but it's not about how many, it's about the conversation, it's about what is it that I learned from having a conversation with each individual.
Hmm.
And while I was doing this work of helping people to step into their new identity and grow and personal growth and believe and upgrading belief and so on, all of them had one thing in common, that it literally it's such a simple concept that it blew my mind away. Like, we only see it when we're ready to see it. The only thing that held us back is our own story.
Mm.
And again, that is bubbling at the surface under limiting beliefs and self doubt and trust and worth and all of it. But it really the story. So now, like in my practice, it really shifted things into looking into what is everyone's story and what is it that it needed to be healed there.
Mm.
And of course, I only get to see that after I took myself to that process. And just putting this book together was really a deep healing process
Mm.
of like what story goes where, why do we talk about this, which one needed to be shared. And I've been triggered in so many different angles and layers that I couldn't even anticipate until in the process. And you were there with me to see me how how that went.
Mhm.
So yes, we could go in a technical, like what is the belief, what do we replace it, how we upgrade it and all that. But for everyone to understand, it's a language that everybody understands. It's like our past is what's holding us back.
Yeah.
Our own
Amen.
story, that's it. It's just that
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah. And store I love the way you call it story because um I remember even in writing my own books, each time I write my own book, it's such a healing journey. I feel myself like resolving something or exploring that memory in a new way, and really putting like a period at the end of the sentence or closing that chapter of my life. And I just love it. And so like I love that I work with a lot of aspiring authors, and it's very predictable that you get to witness that healing journey through the process of writing the book. But you can't think about writing the book, you just have to write it. And you mentioned that, and I think it's so important to say for all of our people, because here on Hearts Unleashed, it is about our story. It is about I wrote it down as like what we tell ourselves, right? Like that story, not our actual like timeline of our life, but the narrative that we've made up about all of it. And I think that that's what's so important, because the way that you were sharing it, I almost heard like a rebrand, like you help people rebrand themselves, but not maybe as to be a brand, but really just to relate themselves to themselves in a new way, or even the next level is like to be proud of who they think they are and share
And
that part of it. Go ahead.
and that's it right there. That's the essence. Because we talk about beliefs and identity, and it doesn't matter if the work that people come into my space and say, hey, it doesn't matter if they say, help me with, I don't know, love my body and feel good in my body, or
Yeah, yeah.
accept my own sexuality, or whatever it is, right? The root is the
Yeah.
same root, the story that we tell ourselves, and we believe it. And now, why do we
Mm,
believe that story? Because we heard it so many times throughout the years, and the day one when we were born, right? So now, if that become a belief and we believe that story, and it's already in us,
mhm.
of course, if somebody's gonna just slap a label on us, it already resonates. Our whole system recognize that, right? So if I grow up with the belief that I'm not allowed to speak up, or I'm not too smart to have an opinion, or whatever, everything that went into that, when my abusive husband says, shut up, I shut up.
Mhm.
I believe him
Mhm.
that I'm supposed to be quiet.
Mhm.
And I can't even blame him, right? It's just like, oh, it's my belief. He's
Mhm.
speaking directly with me.
Yeah.
So we always get to be right.
Yes. Yes. I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful that you're sharing it because we manifest these things inside, like, and you mentioned limiting beliefs and all of that is like those run truer, therefore they manifest more than like what we want to, like we might have these visions of success, or like you were kind of sharing, like, or you've shared before, is like I could dream myself as a motivational speaker, I could see it, but there were still times where the limiting beliefs were stronger than the vision. When did that shift for you, where the vision actually was more powerful than the limiting beliefs?
Mm. Looking back, I think it starts shifting little by little from the very beginning.
Yeah, yeah.
And then life works in a way that there is some massive events that are happening. And I say events, meaning it could be a really messed up situation, or it could be something that we label an amazing success.
Yeah.
But it's so massive that it's kind of like shaking our whole system, like wake
Uh-huh.
us up to see things, right?
Yes. Yes.
So um and it's just it's covering so many different layers. But one thing for me was to realize that I'm living into a culture where um, the emphasis is on labels,
Mm, mhm.
and I don't get to be myself. I always need to please others and be what other people tell me that I supposed to be.
Mhm.
And the decision was like, do I want to raise my kid like this?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I was like, no. So I pack and leave, right? So that was a massive thing. Another massive thing was when my child came out. And while I was working with parents and really diving deeper into how to support these adults to, again, healing their own story, which I didn't know that that's what I was doing, but that's what I was doing, right?
Mhm.
So they could show up for their children, right? To empower their children. And then when my son came out, I was like, okay, here I am. I'm just learning so many things about totally a big part of this world. And I decided to go deeper in that specific segment, right? And really, how would be like if we raise our children without the labels of gender or sexual orientation, and it will allow them to just be like little tiny humans. They grow up, and we're gonna find out who they are when they get there.
Yeah. Yeah. I love
um,
that.
so well, was that work? So and I put time, and I start interviewing people, around the world and all that, and that's how I end up on a TEDx stage. And it really did not go by um, you know um, the rules of do a workshop, do 100 talks, do another 300, and then maybe one day, if you're lucky enough, you're going to get to be on that stage. I was invited.
Mhm.
like from nowhere. And I say yes, and then I freak out because like, oh my God, what I'm gonna do with this, right? Uh, but here's the thing. Even though I got there and that was a massive, event, and people around me will be like, "Oh my God, that's such an accomplishment! It's such a huge success and all that." In reality, I wasn't hiding with it.
Mhm.
Why? Because I still have parts of my being that were not healed, that didn't sit well, that didn't want to be seen. And now here I am, the talk is there with all the mispronunciation and whatever went in it, it's out there for the whole world to see. And I don't want anybody to know that exists. Like that was the approach. Like got published in a year, I didn't talk anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So now when through my process of healing, I uncover like some deep trauma that I didn't even know that is there.
Mhm.
That was another massive event where it really blew in my, in I want to say in my face, but it was really in my soul that, okay, the book that you always want to write,
Mhm.
this is the piece that you need to write about.
Yeah. And oh, I was going to ask you to share because, I mean, it's such to me, it's such an important piece that so many people can relate to in a way that they, on whatever level that they do. And what I mean by that is, I was just in a conversation last night with, I would think like 30 or 40 women, and we were talking about sexual trauma. And and one of the women who was sexually traumatized, her daughter was she was cooking in the kitchen, but she was on the call and her daughter was right there. And her daughter had been through the same thing. And the
Mm,
daughter spoke up on the call and she was crying it, but she was speaking through her tears to say like it my trauma isn't as bad, like it wasn't the same circumstance as other people's, but I still feel this way. And so like what I mean by that, is like so many people can relate, and it doesn't matter like what kind of trauma we've been through, but that it impacts us in our own depth in our own way. And so I'd love to invite you to share a little bit about that, because I know too unfortunately too many people can relate.
yes, yes. Thank you for speaking about it. I mean, that's what we need to do to speak up and speak out.
Yeah.
And I personally don't believe in small trauma, big trauma,
Mm,
ugly trauma, pretty trauma. It's trauma.
yeah.
And as you said, whatever happened that traumatized us, that the two things. First of all, change us for life,
Yeah.
and second, the layers of emotions that we are going through are the same.
Yes.
Now, if we talk about sexual trauma, it doesn't even matter if it's human trafficking, if it's rape, if it's molestation, it's sexual trauma.
Yeah.
So the victim, which I absolutely hate to use that word,
Mhm.
goes through the same layers of emotion. And I'm not a psychologist or a
Mhm.
specialist by any means, but just as a subject of such a trauma,
Yeah.
and talking with so many others, women and men,
Mhm.
about what was their experience. The
Mhm.
emotions are the same.
Mhm.
I'm not worthy.
Mhm.
He or she has the right to do so.
Mhm.
I supposed to be here.
Mhm.
We see that a lot in marriages.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I can't say no
Yeah.
because I'm married with a man,
Mhm.
right? And and then it's just destroying our self-esteem. And if we don't have a self-worth like strong enough inside of us, that usually coming from how we are how we've been raised, then it's nothing to support that damaging of
Right.
self-esteem from outside.
Yeah.
um, if I get to um, invite any adult out there in how can we show up better for our children, and I say adult, I don't care if you're a parent or not, there is kids in your life.
Yeah.
As you know, many times as I say, you could be in a grocery store and be in a conversation with your girlfriend, and your words could affect that 5 years old little girl behind you that she's looking at what chips to choose.
Yeah.
Because we do impact children in our life. So you don't have to be a parent to have this responsibility. As an adult, we have responsibility for all children in our life.
Mm-hmm.
And if we get to do just one thing, is to empower them that they are enough,
Mm-hmm.
like over and over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna build them, a strong self-worth, like from inside out, because life is gonna happen and crappy stuff is gonna happen. But if you know who you are and that you're worthy, it's easier to go through that.
Yeah.
So I know we deviate a little bit from the sexual trauma, but I think it's important to see why we end up in situation like this.
Mm-hmm.
Because look, not everybody in the audience want to hear that, but we do create our circumstances. And I was in years of denial about it, just from the victimhood, like, oh, for me, why this happened to me?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I created it.
Mm-hmm.
I created it. So like really I needed to um, understand and own that I contribute into manifesting, creating, whatever you want to call it, that circumstance, so I could grow.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see myself in a mirror and say, oh my God, you let people step all over you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have two options. You get to blame on them and stay there, or you say, what else is possible?
Yes. I'm
And
so.
that's the path that not many want to take, because that's the path that takes years of healing, investing in yourself, facing your demons, forgiving everyone that ever hurt you. And it's hard work, but
Mm-hmm.
it's so damn worth it, because that's what freedom is hiding right there after all that.
Yes. I'm so grateful for you because, like, that, oh, like, I have goosebumps because it's such a powerful message. And, like, thank you for the courage to share that we do, in fact, manifest our circumstances and contribute to the situations we end up in. And I love what you were saying because it ties directly to that worth, right? Like, when we know our worth, we don't let people stomp on us or walk on us or take advantage. And do crappy things happen? Yes, right? Like, yes. And it is an opportunity to find reveal in you that darkness that has gone unseen and hidden and repressed, and to surface it and to forgive it and to release it and bless it. And I just love that you brought that to this conversation, because when we're talking about hearts unleashed, we're talking about the whole heart unleashed, not just light and love and fairy dust, right? But the darkness too, and integrating the dark parts of us, or the shadow, or the insecurities, or the limiting beliefs. Like, those have to be seen too. And so thank you for, because I'm just so present to the totality of us as individuals and as people, and
Mm.
with and without labels, like, just all of it, right? And what people might call us, but what we might call ourselves, and what we'd like to be. And so I'm just so present to the wholeness of it all. So thank you for that.
Thank you, thank you. And look, I like that you say that, like with the whole heart, like fully open. And I'm pleased to see that the current trend is like just to be vulnerable and open and sharing and sincere, and it's powerful and it's beautiful. And if may I share, just after publishing this book, like I never been so visible ever in my life.
Mm,
And an interesting phenomena happened. Is okay, so my story is out there for the whole world to read, right? And I'm perfectly okay with that. And in
mhm,
the same time, is this craving of privacy,
mhm,
but in a space of, see, I don't even have the words because it's so new to me, like talking about going through changes and shifting identities. Like that's where I'm at. Like I'm shifting my identity, and it's going to become what it's going to become. um, but to the point of who do I share what? And it's just the whole concept of private and privacy
Mhm.
has a different meaning to me. Like anybody that knows me know that, oh, she's an open book, she's sharing everything, she's actually oversharing everything.
Mhm.
That's how people know me.
Yeah.
And now while my story, it's such a paradox, but that's what I'm living into a life of paradox. Like the book is there, in the same time I'm very cautious of who gets access to my private life.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's interesting to witness, and I'm sharing this because I want to believe there is people in audience, they are going to big shift in their identity, and I just want to invite you to allow yourself to just take some space and take a step back, and just get curious, like, okay, so what is it that you want now? And it's okay to want to do life differently,
Mhm.
and it's
Mhm.
okay to give yourself whatever time you need to learn how to do life in this differently way.
Yeah. Yes, I love it. And I think it continues to come back to raising your voice is like you're going to have to speak up about this in order to cause it to be so. And so I just love it, and I love the invitation to the audience is like speak up or and look in, right? Like you couldn't unleash anything that you don't know is in there. And so there's such an introspective piece to this puzzle. And so and you've definitely done that work and you do that work with others. And so, if someone's hearing all of this information and like just can't wait to like meet you or connect with you or read the book, how can they find you? Where can they get access to Simona?
Well, the best way is the how I call it, electronic business card, which is my website. Just my name, Simona Spark.
Yep.
So that's just to go in one space. I'm Googleable. I also like to say that. Uh, but everything is on that website. My talks, the books, the work that I do, groups, supports, and so on. And I do like when you say, just like raising your voice and look between, and I will add to that with your permission, of course, um, having that first conversation,
Mm,
like telling the truth with yourself.
yes.
And I'm saying first conversation
Yeah.
because God knows how many conversations we need with ourselves until we we build the strength to have that conversation with somebody else and ask for support.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. And especially in this podcast or in my coaching, I'm always promoting mirror work because like sometimes we need to think we're talking to somebody. So if we can meet ourselves, like there have been many times I've sat down in the mirror and I'm like, oh my gosh, hi, I miss you. How you doing? Right? Like there's just this totally different check in with myself when I see myself. And so I love mirror work. I love journaling and all those things, but you're right about that honest conversation with yourself. You can try to lie to everyone else and yourself, but at some point that truth will push its way out. And I think that that's where it becomes unavoidable. Like that transformation just kind of forces its way. And so you've done that. You've done that work, and I'm so grateful for you in the way that you do the work because you can't do the work in the world if you don't do the work within, and like it's just so apparent. So I just want to acknowledge you for the work that you have done within and the way that it gets to shine without.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for seeing me.
Mhm.
And thank you for having me here. And thank you for all your support. Really, I really,
Yeah.
really appreciate you.
Yes. Thank you so much. I love you so much. And hearts, I hope you love Simona. I hope you loved everything that she said and everything that we got to talk about today. If you would love to find out more, please head over to simonaspark.com, connect with her online, all the things, all the places. Grab her book, Raising My Voice, the memoir of an immigrant. It is amazing. It is thought provoking. It will stretch you into a whole new belief system. And I really love that about her and her book and just the way that you are. So thank you for being here. And hearts, I hope you got everything that you needed from today's conversation. Thank you for tuning in to the Hearts Unleashed podcast, where we are turning dreamers into doers.